What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. Today is episode 167 now, Week 7 waiver wire talk we're talking today. Hopefully your guys' Week 6 went off with a bang. Mine, unfortunately, didn't. But that's why we're talking waiver wires today. We're going to help you guys find some players to help you, pick you up and kind of deal with the injuries that we had this week and the probably one of the worst bye weeks I've ever seen in fantasy football this week. So we're going to do that, and at the end, we're going to do a couple, buy low, sell high candidates to go out and pick up now, trade for, to kind of help you get back on track or continue your greatness you're doing this entire season. Of course, let me introduce Coach Jibbs to the stream. What's going on, Jibbs?
How you doing?
Good as ever, man. Besides fantasy.
I didn't have that bad of a week, but still, not as I expected. So probably in the same boat as you, but I'm looking forward to this Monday night showcase we have tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I have like a billion players who I need them to do a little bit much, but not as much as I want them to. So it should be interesting. But we have a guest on tonight, guys. I'd like to introduce him now, Joshua Cho. What's going on, bud? Welcome to the stage.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Happy to be here and talk some football before the Monday night game.
Absolutely, man. It's appreciate you coming on with us. I know we've talked before the show how we all met, on some other people's pods, and it's nice to actually get you on ours, and we're going to talk some fantasy tonight.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. So before we get started, kind of let people know if you do anything, what do you do in the industry, or, kind of what you like to do, and your favorite football team, of course.
Yeah, so I'm a big-time Bears guy. I was born and raised in Chicago. I'm out in the East Coast now, but still staying true to my Bears. Actually, I hopped on Twitter. I actually just got a notification that it was like my 10-year anniversary on Twitter.
Oh, wow.
So when I started my handle, JB Cho knows, I kind of came on, and it seems like a long time ago, just to help people with their fantasy questions and make some connections that way. And then I hopped off with Twitter for a long while. And then after a hiatus, I kind of came back on a couple seasons ago. And I just started to get more connected again, just with different, content creators and, guys like you guys, with the grind that you guys are putting in to put out awesome content and just keep people informed so they can do well in their fantasy football season. So, I don't really have a website or anything like that right now, but just helping people, answering questions on Twitter. So you can find me at JB Cho Knows. That's about it.
That's awesome, guys. So if you could give him a follow, check out his stuff, and you have questions, ask him. He's intelligent. That's why we brought him on. So, all right, guys. So before we get started with, obviously, the waiver wire portion of the show, I'm just going to run through the news real quick. As we all know this morning, big news for those who have Kareem Hunt. He is likely to go in the IR, likely out at least 3 weeks with that calf injury, likely more. So keep that in mind. But we'll kind of talk about some replacements for him on the show a little bit later. Baker Mayfield thinks he can play through with a shoulder injury. It's still undecided if he's playing this Thursday because the Bears do play on Thursday. So a guy like Case Keenum is someone to keep your eyes on. Dak Prescott, he suffered a calf strain, but thankfully they're on a bye this week, so we won't have to worry about it. Hopefully, it seems like he's going to be okay going into next week. Michael Thomas is eligible to come off this week. What else? Alex Collins had a hip injury on that Sunday Night Football game last night, but he should be okay. It's still undecided, but just keep your eyes out on that. Tyrod Taylor, day-to-day right now, so if you have Davis Mills starting, you might get lucky and not have to start him anymore. Rashod Penny is coming off the IR, which is good. Jerry Jeudy came off the IR as well, but he's supposed to be playing Thursday, but him playing himself, well, the Broncos are playing Thursday, but him playing less than 50% chance right now, so he may be more of a week 8 kind of return. Let's see. Paris Campbell, significant injury. He's likely to miss some time, which was unfortunate because he had a nice touchdown earlier on Sunday. And he just can't. It's unfortunate because he's such a talent, but it just is never going to work for him. Yeah. So it seems like. But that's most of the news right now, guys. Hopefully we won't hear anything worse as the night goes on. So we'll see how this night goes. And time to talk some waiver wire. So, Josh, you're going to be... Huh?
You just gave it the kiss of death.
Oh, God, I really hope nothing goes bad. Especially, I'm not going to even mention names. That's just a bad right there. So won't be doing that tonight, guys. So we're going to be talking some waiver wire pickups now. So, Josh, you're going to have first dibs on the quarterback that you want to pick up going into week 7.
All right. So generally speaking, I like to wait on my QBs and QB1 leagues in redraft, and so sometimes I end up streaming, right? Because you got to kind of play the matchups and see who's hot and who's back from injury. So the guy that I would recommend picking up right now is Tua Tagovailoa, and obviously he's the Miami QB, and Jacoby Brissett has had some decent games, while Tua's been injured. But it's really awesome to see that he came back and he really put up some pretty good numbers. He threw for over 300 yards and tossed 2 touchdowns. He did have a pick, but the haters are always just ready to, they want to pounce on him and see every reason to just call him a bust. But I really believe in Tua, and even if you're not super in on him or all in on him, he does face the Atlanta Falcons next week, and we know that the Atlanta Falcons give up plenty of yards through the air. And so, I can see him having another really good game, targeting Waddle, and hopefully they get Gaskin, moving a little bit more. He's been very on and off, but Tua should be a focal point of that offense, because they are having some trouble running the ball. So I'll definitely go and pick up Tua and see if you can start him if you need to, or hold and wait for matchups.
I love that one there, Josh. As a Dolphins fan, definitely love that pick. And it's a good matchup, too, not being a biased Dolphins fan, but it is a good matchup for Tua this week. He looked better than early on in the season, so it's a good pickup. So I love it. Coach Gibbs, what do we got for your pickup?
You know who hates that? I do, because that was my pick. But I'll just flip the script, and I'll just go with Jameis Winston coming off the bye week this week, and he's going against the Seattle Seahawks, who aren't really that good on defense. But we've seen Jameis Winston be somewhat sporadical as his play goes up. We've seen week 1 almost 30 points to the depths of the middling teens, and then last week week 5 he kind of left us on a cliffhanger. He had 25 points. So I'm just gonna go on the cliff that I think he's gonna perform this week if they get Michael Thomas back. They had a bye week, so they at least have some time for rest and recovery. So I think he'll get out of this bye week pretty good on the right foot, and I think Jameis Winston could be a decent streaming option. But if I was my listeners, I would go with Tua Tagovailoa, just like Josh said.
Very much agreed with that too, Jibs. If I had to pick one, I'd go Tua, but I'll give you guys another option, of course. We're not going to give you just one option on the entire show. So outside of Winston and Tua, Carson Wentz is not a terrible option. He's obviously looked a lot better over the last couple of weeks now. He's not putting up big performances that are going to wow you, but he's playing decently well. They do play the 49ers coming off a bye, and this could be a game where it might be needed for them to throw the ball a little bit more. Hopefully Ty is not too banged up that he'll play in the next game here. Obviously, he made a connection pretty quickly with Carson Wentz. You still have Michael Pittman at the tight ends, and they're going to play a lot of play action at times. With Jonathan Taylor running the ball as a wild man as he has this entire last 4 weeks now. So Carson Wentz, if you're in a bind, because there's a lot of guys on bye, I didn't mention that yet, but he could be a suitable option for you as well this week. A couple others. If Matt Ryan's out there, I'd probably pick Matt Ryan up over these guys, honestly, because he does play the Dolphins, and the Dolphins have been pretty bad, and unfortunately. And again, Jimmy G, if he does start this game against the Colts have been known to let up quarterback fantasy points, or maybe Trey Lance, he's still out there for sure. And in deeper dynasty leagues, Case Keenum might be an unfortunate option for you this week if Baker Mayfield is out. And there's a reason why, because there's a lot of bye weeks. There's the Bills, the Chargers, the Cowboys, the Jags, the Steelers, the Vikings. At least four of those teams have a quarterback that you can pretty much rely on week in and week out. So it's definitely a tough week for fantasy for sure. But
add in the injuries, and it's man, injuries plus the buys is what's crazy right now, man. I have teams with CEH, Barkley, Galladay, all on the same squad, just man, what is happening?
You need to increase the IR spots.
Starting spot is RB 40, so you're not even looking at anything good.
I would imagine that at least for the running backs, at least the top 20 running backs pre-draft, or at least 85% of them have missed at least one game so far. So those people who believe in the zero RB strategy are laughing in a lot of people's faces this season because
you're still gonna lose, man. Zero
they
RB ain't
the right ones.
Probably are. So, But like I mentioned, the RBs. We talked about picking up RBs last week. Last week was a great RB waiver wire pickup week. This week there's some hitters, but it's not as not as talent wise as we saw. We were telling you last week to go get Darrell Williams, Booker, some of these guys who actually performed, Herbert, some of these guys who actually performed last week. So this isn't as same, but we do have some people to talk about. So, Josh, who's your top RB pickup this week?
Okay, can I just say real quick, shout out to Khalil Herbert, my Chicago Bears rookie guy. Loved him coming out of the draft and seeing him perform well and getting, the pathway to the lead duties was what was always the biggest question, but just seeing him, work the ball on the ground was pretty awesome. This past weekend. The guy that I'd suggest this week is D'Ernest Johnson. He's actually someone that I told people that they should pick up on last week because with Chubb out, last season, there was one game where he came in and he split duties with Kareem Hunt, and he actually did pretty well, almost had 100 yards on the ground. He's not the best back, which is why he's RB3 on the team, playing behind Chubb and Kareem Hunt. But with Hunt now hurt with his calf, and also Chubb, he may not be ready for this Thursday, right? Because it's an earlier, game in the week for him. D'Ernest Johnson on a short week could become kind of the de facto RB1 for the squad, and they are a very run-heavy team. So the design, the system, everything is built for a running back to step in and do well. And he's shown over his career, although not many starts, he's averaging 5 yards per carry over his career. And so if he gets enough touches behind the line and in that offense, especially as long as Baker Mayfield, I think if he's not out there, it's going to be a little bit tougher. But if he is out there and challenging, the secondary and keeping the defense honest through the air, I think D'Ernest Johnson can have a pretty good week, coming up against the Broncos, right?
Yeah, no, he's definitely put into an opportunity like touch situation here now for sure. And the thing is, he barely played last game too. Kareem Hunt didn't really get hurt until the fourth quarter, so he didn't see a lot of wear and tear right now. And that Denver defense is probably pretty beat up after losing to the Raiders this week. So it could be a really good game. If you had a term in terms of fab, how much would you spend on D'Ernest Johnson?
Oh man, I mean, out of 100, like let's say out of a base 100. I mean, I kind of have like a rule of thumb. If there's someone that you want to get that you're going to start that week, I usually say you got to at least drop like 25% of your fab, right? Like 25 to 30. I used a lot of my fab, on Hubbard, and even Darrell Williams in the past couple of weeks. But yeah, he's not someone that I would invest too heavily in because Chubb, he may miss Thursday, but they're likely trying to make sure he gets back on, for the following week. So I would say I would go like 25 ish, fab if you really need him and you're in a bind.
Right, I think I pretty much agree with you. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the top limit right there because it might be a 1 week wonder, it might not. We don't know yet, but you take that risk with your fab situation. So it seems like running backs continue to miss more time, even though it's like maybe a 1 week thing. So that it could end up being a multi-week pickup for you. So just keep that in mind. So love that. Coach Gibbs, what do you got with your first one outside of?
I have a question for Joshua first.
All right, go for it.
Do you think Khalil Herbert will be a thorn in David Montgomery's side once Monty gets back healthy?
I'm not too worried about that. And we still have a little ways out for, Montgomery to come back. I actually was thinking more so people who picked up Damian Williams and expected him to kind of be the lead back, with Monty out for so long, they actually might be the ones that feel that thorn of, Khalil Herbert looks so good. He may get the opportunities that we thought Damian Williams was going to get before he went on the COVID list, right? So I really like Khalil Herbert a lot. I mean, I definitely have some dynasty teams with him on it that I pulled him up from a couple taxi squads to play him, this past week in a couple dynasty leagues, and he did really well. And so I can see them maybe using him as kind of their RB1A to Damian Williams RB 1B until Montgomery comes back. But when Montgomery's back, as long as he's healthy, I think he's going to take it back over. Yeah, so I'm not too worried about that.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Good question. Good question.
Back to the news. My second pick, I'm going to go Dearness Johnson as well as the priority pick of the week. But for me, number 2 would be Ramondre Stevenson. I know you're just pulling your hair out and year after year trying to figure out who the Patriots running back number 1 is going to be or how they're going to flow with the running backs. But I know Damian Harris, he doesn't really catch passes. I thought it was pretty surprisingly that Ramondre Stevenson had 3 receptions, and you would figure Brandon Bolden will get that kind of work, and he only had 1. So yeah, it's good light in here. He did score a touchdown. But for me, I know they're playing the Jets next week, and I could see that game probably getting out of hand more than likely. So I think for mop-up duty, especially with Damian Harris kind of getting banged up over the last 2 weeks, you could see a little nice sprinkle of Ramondre Stevenson in there for the chunk garbage time or blowout carry. So that's why I like Ramondre Stevenson. And as the year goes on, maybe he could find himself in a bigger role as he gets better in pass protection, or obviously he's just basically handcuffed to Damian Williams in case his health goes to awry. So that's why I like Ramondre Stevenson as the second pickup for the week.
All right, no, I love that there, and it was cool to see him actually see work in the receiving game. Definitely a bit of surprise. So maybe they work him more in this offense here and actually see some of that receiving work, which would obviously big in fantasy. So love that. So I mean, they're like the top 2 picks. You could say that this next one here, my number 1 at this point after these 2 would probably be Devontae Freeman. It's not a second pick whatsoever. It's not whatsoever. But he played well enough against the Chargers. I know the Chargers were a really bad run defense. I mean, he had 953 yards. But Latavius Murray did get banged up in this game. It's unsure if that's going to be something that's long term. But if it is, I mean, Freeman likely will see in the starting role because it seems like the Ravens just don't care about Tyson Williams anymore. It's all about the veterans. I don't really believe Le'Veon Bell is the right fit for this offense per se. So I would say Freeman would see the chunk of those carries if that were to come up during the week this week. Again, it's not the best matchup, and I don't know if you'd even start him, to be honest. But if you're in a bind with the buys and injuries this week, I mean, it could be a decent matchup. I know the Bengals have played much better on defense this year, but someone has to get those carries, and it could be Freeman this week. So again, it's a very minimal pickup. It's very minimal fab kind of thing. It's if you don't get him, you don't get him. Don't worry about it. But he could end up being a week 7 starter for you this week. So
yeah, that's interesting with Freeman. He still has the skill set, to really help out any team, because he can play in pass pro. I mean, he can catch the ball and he can run pretty well still. So, yeah, I'm in on that too. If you don't get some of these other top, picks, can I just mention one quick bonus guy real quick?
go ahead, yeah.
Yeah. So J.D. McKissick, I know, is a name that everyone probably already knows, and Antonio Gibson owners hate that name because we see him coming in on the 2-minute drills and all the catch-up times, hurry-up offense, and racking up the fantasy points that Gibson owners are like, or those with Gibson on their team are hoping that they would all be the volume that he'd be seeing. But McKissick is owned in just over 40% of leagues in Yahoo. I'm not sure exactly on ESPN, but he's had spurts of production according to game script and things like that. But we see Gibson, and I feel bad because I advise a lot of people, like, if Gibson is healthy and good to go, you got to go with him. But he's clearly showing, even though he's active, he's not really healthy. And so I think McKissick can, pick up some extra slack, and we get him for the PPR points, right? He had 8 receptions on the week this past weekend. And so he's someone that I definitely keep an eye on if he's available somehow on your free agency or waiver wire.
Love that.
Love that. It's a great pick there for sure. Do you have another one, person? Another one, perhaps?
Oh, me?
Yeah, Josh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we kind of covered the guys that I was thinking about. Actually, when Jibs brought up, Ramondre Stevenson, that was another guy that I kind of had in kind of the back of my mind. Just, seeing him catch he caught all 3 targets that were sent his way, for 39 yards. And He ran for 20, and he actually was in the goal line. After Damian Harris was unable to get in to the end zone. So I'm not too worried that he's going to take over Damian Harris in any way. But if a game script kind of that it could get out of hand, or they could do really well, like for example against the Jets. I really think that he's also a good pickup just to kind of have stashed. I mean, you don't want to be starting these guys, right? I mean, let's be honest, right? The guys that we have this week, you don't want to be starting them, but some of us may need to be starting them. So these are the guys I think, Dearness Johnson, Ramondre Stevenson, yes, Devonta Freeman, and guys like J.D. McKissick if they're available.
All right, love it. Coach Shiv, you got anybody else you want to mention?
I do, and it's ugly. So guys like Steve mentioned before, Bills, Chargers, Jaguars, Steelers, and Vikings all on a bye. And if you need a running back just to fill the lineup, just go get Mark Ingram. I know the guy is pretty much terrible for like NFL standards, but over the last 2 weeks he has 34 rush attempts. So if you're gonna find a guy just in this week's span, just getting about 15 touches, I think that's a good guy to get on your team.
Yeah, I mean, he'll average 2 yards on those touches, but yeah, I mean,
it's better than starting some of these other guys.
Great.
And they're going against the Cardinals, so don't expect him to be getting like those blowout touches or anything. But there's a good chance that the Cardinals kind of want him to at least have the Texans stay in the game and maybe he'll fall in the end zone. But
yeah,
hey,
I like it.
All right, I love it, Jibs. All right, so a couple more real quick, guys, just to name some heads there if you're really desperate. Brendan Bolden didn't have the best week last week, but maybe he gets back into that receiving role. Felton from the Browns, I can't think of his first name. I feel like I put his first name wrong in there. But he was like a kind of like a passing down hybrid. Dimitri Felton, yeah, thank you. Kind of a hybrid running back there. He might see more work if that's the case. Jarrett Patterson is like a really deep dive stash if Antonio Gibson is down, because he might see more of that first and second down role if that's the case, possibly. Rashad Penny, that one might be someone you might want to go pick up more often this week. He's supposed to be coming off the IR, and Pete Carroll said he's good to go, but can we really trust Pete Carroll? We don't know. But he has former first-round talent to his game here, and if Alex Collins misses, it's DJ Dallas, Travis Homer. Penny could end up seeing a big workload coming off of his injury. There's Marlon Mack if he gets traded. Le'Veon Bell, again, that's like really deep, desperate. Taysom Williams, I mean, maybe he gets back in the starting role with Murray out. We don't know. I mean, I said Freeman, but maybe it's Williams. And then Kenny Gainwell is still kind of sitting out there, about 22% owned. He could still be someone who ends up seeing a big workload if they wanted to move on from Sanders. And then if Ronald Jones is out there, another possible trade candidate. Again, these are like some of these at the end here are just stashes, so just keep them in mind. But maybe the Bucs trade Ronald Jones and he goes to a situation where he can thrive finally. So
hey, you're tugging at my heartstrings, man. I'm a big Rojo guy. I'm a Rojo truther, so I would love to see that. It's really hard to see him wanting to leave because he could get another championship just chipping in and doing his part. That man is still a young man. I think he's 24 this year. And he's already been in the league a few years, and he runs well. When given the opportunity. So, but man, he gets into that doghouse quick. Like Arians just like he's ready to just throw him in there at like a moment's notice. So, yeah, I like that actually. I'm actually holding on stubbornly in a couple redraft leagues. I have him on my bench, so definitely if he's out there on your free agency or waiver wire, I think he's worth a stash though. So yeah,
straight to the Texans.
That would be that'd be great. All right, guys. So let's over to the wide receivers now. Josh, who do you have as your number one I can't talk tonight. Wide receiver pickup of the week.
All right, man. So I was kind of up in the air between two people. I won't mention both because I don't want to steal one of your guys' choices. But
I got choices.
I'll go with Tim Patrick. This week as my top pickup. He's not a big flashy name, nor is he like a big time like playmaker type of guy, but he really has a nose for the end zone, and he makes the important plays and catches for his team. He scored in half of his season's games already, and he's been very efficient with his receptions. But he's also scored, fantasy points wise, double-digit fantasy points in 5 of his 6 games. So he's only failed to score double digits once, this season in PPR. And so, we all knew that Sutton would step up, but that was expected. But there was always kind of like, well, who's going to be next to him with Judy out? And I think Patrick has kind of established himself as someone who can be productive in that role. I think Judy, he's eligible to come off of IR, but I think his actual return date is a little bit unclear still. So Patrick could still have a couple more good games, remaining, in his, in his pocket. So Tim Patrick is a guy, I think 35% owned right now in Yahoo as of, yesterday night. So he's someone that you might be able to scoop up. And if you're in a bind, put him out there. And he's been pretty dependable. So I like him as my top pickup.
Wow, I love that. The most basic name in football, but
2 first names. They say you can't trust him, but he's been pretty trustworthy.
He sure has, that's for sure. I love that pick there, Josh. Jibs, what do we got with your first wide receiver?
I'm going to go with Rashod Bateman from the Baltimore Ravens. And I know typically it kind of goes against my credence in fantasy football, just based off a team that runs the ball so often, and you're given a wide receiver who's not even the pretty much third option on the teams. But he's coming back after 5 weeks, and he did have 6 targets. He only caught 29 yards receiving, but if you look at the whole team splits, he tied with Mark Andrews in the lead of targets. So that's pretty cool that his first NFL game, the Ravens wanted to get him up to speed. And I think it's kind of goes hand in hand. Like Lamar Jackson has excelled as a passer so far this year, and he's on pace for over 500 pass attempts, which beats his career average or his career best by over 100 pass attempts. But that, like, on a weekly average, equates to 7 more pass attempts per game. So if he can keep that going, I think there's enough room for Rashod Bateman and I guess the other people, Mark Andrews, Mark Hollywood Brown, to kind of all jive together and something like that. But I know he has a bye in week 8, so you can kind of monitor his status. But if you have a spot on your bench to kind of fiddle around with, like, you could hold him during that stretch. And after that, he comes with Minnesota, Miami, and Chicago. So there's something to be had there, and just keep an eye on him. Rookie wide receivers don't really start off hot anyway, but it is the Ravens, and he's a bigger receiver, unlike Marquise Brown, who's faster, and he could catch just the same. Hopefully he doesn't drop as many balls as he does, though.
Yeah, that's a great pickup right now, honestly. I think going into their bye, they're going to find ways to get this guy more targets as the season goes on. He former first-round pick, so just keep your eye on him. I love that pickup as well. So my pickup, guys, I'm going basically unowned for the most part here, and it's Donovan's Peoples-Jones, and it's a risky play. It's a boom or bust kind of play, but he's had 70 yards in back-to-back games now, and I don't know if I'd play him if Baker is playing this week, because I don't know how that shoulder injury is going to affect how he's throwing the ball downfield per se. But if Case Keenum does play, and that would be his backup, Case Keenum and kind of just air the ball out at times. We've seen him do it in Minnesota and Denver. Again, it wasn't always pretty, but it's possible. The Denver Broncos, they did allow up some receiving work to the Raiders last week. Henry Ruggs had a really good week stretching the ball downfield. Braylon Edwards had a couple of deep balls. Donald Peoples-Jones could do that similar fashion this week, especially with Odell maybe banged up still. He did play the rest of the game, but he is banged up. I don't think Landry's coming back this week. He might, but I don't think he is. So Peoples-Jones could end up having himself a pretty decent game off a short week of rest. So again, it's more of a boom or bust play, but if you're looking for something kind of get your team over the top, it could be Peoples-Jones this week.
Yeah.
All right, Josh. So back to you, my friend. Who's your number 2 pickup?
All right, so I actually had Bateman as my second one. I didn't want to say it because I had a feeling that Jibs would say him. I just want to talk about it for a quick second. Coming out of this draft class, he was actually my wide receiver 1. Coming out, and I was so excited to see where he would land. And kind of what Jiz was referring to in terms of the number of pass attempts in Baltimore. That was kind of a little bit of a downer to see him land there and not in like a prolific, pass first, type of offense. And the only thing that I would say is I worry a little bit because Sammy Watkins was out this past game, and I think they would kind of play the similar role. So it'll be interesting to see how they work him in along with Sammy when he's healthy, because I still like Sammy Watkins as well. I know people, rag on me a lot for that, but I still think Sammy, who has done really well this year, and I think I was posting, I tweeted out like he's been kind of an under the radar, dependable guy for Lamar Jackson, and then he gets hurt, so it's hope I didn't jinx him. But yeah, so Bateman was also on my list. I think a guy that I would say is Jamison Crowder. Now Jamison Crowder, I'm shocked that he's not owned in more leagues. Right now, 27% is where he's sitting at in terms of rostership. And, he's someone, especially in PPR formats, he's always able to produce. And especially for a young rookie quarterback like Zach Wilson, you need dependable targets. You need dependable people. And a lot of the times there's going to be short routes, routes that go and slant, into the middle, crossing over the middle. And Jamison Crowder is someone who specializes in getting underneath, getting the ball, and getting down. And we saw, that they had a good connection a couple of games ago. And there's no reason to believe that, I know there was so much hype about Elijah Moore, coming into this season. But I always said, you can't hype up a rookie that much, especially when you have Corey Davis and Jamison Crowder who returned, right? So Crowder is someone that I would probably scoop up. I think their next game is against New England, so it's not maybe the best matchup wise, but he's someone that I can see putting up, a decent base floor for you at the wide receiver position in PPR, especially if you're in a bind. So he is my second pickup, Jamison Crowder. Sweet.
And I like that. I mean, Crowder's been a pretty solid PPR machine. Yeah. And he's played a couple games this year where he's actually been fantasy relevant. So, yeah. I mean, I'm sure they'll find ways to get him going. And a week off always helps with rest and everything like that. So they'll have to find a way to get the ball down the field because it is New England. So I love that pickup. Coach Gibbs, who's your number 2 pickup?
I'm going with another old receiver with T.Y. Hilton, although I didn't know he hurt his quad during Sunday's game, but checking on the news, it says he's day-to-day. So obviously keep monitoring him. But I like him even as like a long-term, like maybe flex option for some of your rosters. Even though he debuted in week 6, he played 50% of the snaps. He had 4 catches for 80 yards. Just did T.Y. Hilton things. He just tortures the Texans no matter what. And you look at some of his upcoming matchups, they're fantasy friendly if you ask me. He goes against the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, if he's 100% or not, we won't know. But after that, Tennessee, the New York Jets, Jacksonville Jaguars, I think those are all somewhat enticing options. Some attractive matchups for you to consider an option in your fantasy teams. And he's pretty widely owned just because of him coming off this long injury stint. So just keep an eye on him. Paris Campbell kind of got hurt, so it kind of would force T.Y. Hilton to playing somewhat elevated role due to his old age, but you kind of still know they're going to ride with Pittman and Pascal probably as the 1-2 punch until he gets fully healthy.
All right, I love that one as well. He looked good. Till his injury, he looked pretty good out there again with Carson Wentz, so love that. All right, guys. So my last one, I mentioned him last week, but I'll mention him again this week, is Amon-Ra St. Brown from the Lions. I know the Lions have been a pretty bad offense overall this season here, but St. Brown's seen 8 targets over his last 3 games now. He's seen the targets, it just hasn't produced big fantasy numbers, but I feel like that is going to come for him at some point. In a game with the Rams this coming week, it sounds like a really bad matchup just on paper for sure, and I get it, but the Rams do allow production underneath. They kind of stop the deep game there, and that's kind of the only thing that the Lions have is a short passing game here. It's worth a pick
for you.
That is true. His coach called him out on it, so hopefully he'll step up this week. But it might not be a week 7 pickup, but it might be more of a long-term thing still. He did see a little bit of a boost this past week in his ownership. Again, it's a matter of time, I think, before he ends up producing some flex appeal fantasy numbers for you. So go out and get him now and kind of hold on to him on your bench if you can. So that's my number 2. A couple other guys just mentioned real quick. Marquez Callaway, still under the 40% mark. They could find new ways to get him involved in the offense after a bye. Van Jefferson, Kendall Hilton, especially with a guy like Jerry Jeudy still out for another few weeks. In deeper leagues, he produced some numbers. Quez Watkins, he seems to be more involved in the offense now in Philly over Rigger right now. KJ Osborne is, of course, always, kind of just there if you're looking for a boomer bust play. AJ Green's been pretty consistent. Jamal Agnew from the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's a return man, but he's been playing a lot on the offense, and since Shark has left, he's produced fantasy numbers. So if you're in a desperate deeper league, he could be a valuable pickup. Christian Kirk is kind of going on and off from having good and bad weeks. Nico Collins, he might be someone you might want to pick up and stash too. I know the offense is bad, but he is now back, and I was really high on him coming out of the draft. So there's some more guys to pick up, either play or stash for the week.
I'd prioritize Kirk if he is there. I know he's a little over the 40% mark, but he's averaging a little over 4 receptions a game right now, and he's averaging 14 yards plus per reception. So I see him staying really involved, and they're giving him a lot of good looks, like quality looks, deep passes, but also, in the middle game. So he's someone I would prioritize actually. And I think if you need someone, like, he can be a flex on any given, Sunday, especially with Kyler Murray and that offense humming. I really like Kirk. And it's cool to see him actually producing this season, because I think, a lot of people were high on him for, since he came into the league.
Right. No, definitely don't hate that, that's for sure. All right, tight end pickups, guys. Now, Josh, who do you have as your tight end pickup this week?
Yeah, so this is probably everyone's tight end pickup, or a lot of people's, but it's Ricky Seals-Jones of the almost said the Redskins, of the Washington football team. Obviously with the loss of Logan Thomas to the IR, someone had to step up and fill in at that position. Enter Ricky Seals-Jones, 6'4", 243. And playing really well. They're getting him out on a lot of routes. He's averaged 4.5 targets per game in the last 2 games, and he's averaged 50 yards per game over that time and found the end zone once. So he is looking really good. And, the tight end, it's always a bit of a wasteland. But he's someone I think a lot of people are actually excited about, that he's filling in so nicely. And I think they face the Packers next week. So it's a pretty decent matchup for him to step in and play well. And he's definitely the one that I would go and target if you are looking for a tight end for this upcoming week.
I could not agree with you more, honestly. That was my number 1 as well. I'm sure it's probably Jibs' number 1. But Jibs, what do you got for yours?
Ross Dwelly.
Ross Dwelly.
So, yeah, if you're streaming for a matchup, just take a look at Ross Dwelly. He's going against the Indianapolis Colts to give it the 4th most points to tight ends. And if you just kind of take away, I guess, that pathetic Houston Texans performance on Sunday, Mike Gesicki got 5 for 57 and a touchdown, and Mark Andrews torched them on Monday Night Football for the 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they're a little bit squeaky. I'm not expecting Ross Dwelly with the quarterback that we don't know yet. If it's Jimmy G, I probably feel a little bit better. If it's Trey Lance, maybe a little bit worse. But regardless, I think the matchup's good. And if you want a guy just to play and be able-bodied, you can look at Evan Ingram, or hopefully if what's this guy's name? Dan Arnold. Hopefully he's feeling a little bit better. I know he got a little dinged up during that game. He did come back in the game, but he's also another option who gets attention in his offense.
I like the Arnold pick.
Definitely. Just know that he is on a bye, so if you're picking him up, it's more of a long-term yeah. So don't pick him up to start him, because you'll be sadly sad on that one. So love that. That's a nice deep one. I like that. I didn't even have Ross Dwelly on my list here, so I'm glad you had him there. So for me, guys, if it's not Dan Arnold, if you're not looking for like a long-term thing, I'd give OJ Howard a shot. He was 6 for 7 on his targets last week. Again, you don't know how consistent that's going to be. It could have been just a 1 week thing, to be honest. Again, this offense has so many mouths to feed. We really just don't know what they plan on doing with this offense. But it was good that he did see more snaps. He saw his probably highest target since like week 1 of 2020. So perhaps he gets going again. We love his talent. He's still young. He's a physical tight end, very athletic. It's worth taking a shot on. They play the Bears. Again, it's probably not the best matchup, but they might try to work him in the offense more. They had a little bit more rest this week. So I give him a shot. Again, there's not a lot of tight ends I'd really want to go after, but he's definitely one I'd throw a wrench at if you're desperate for a situation.
That's an awesome pick. In my mind, OJ Howard is already owned in every league, but I know that he's not. But he should be on your roster if you are in trouble at tight end, because especially with Gronk, dealing with all his, injuries with the, cracked ribs and the punctured lung and all these things that he's recovering from. Man, OJ Howard, he's got the talent to really be a good, very good tight end. He's shown it in the past. And I don't know why Cameron Brate is always like, why is he standing in the way of anything? Like, just let OJ run and get out there and make some plays, man. So
exactly.
Yeah,
I think Howard might be more of a long-term thing too, because if you think about it, they don't need Gronk right now. They clearly don't need Gronk in the offense. So let Gronk heal 100%. They'll have him back for the playoffs. I mean, maybe he'll probably be back before that, but if they're already 5-0, they're 6-0, I think. No, 5-1. They don't need Gronk right now. They can let Gronk rest up and have him 100% for playoff runs. So just keep that in mind too. So, and in terms of other tight ends, I mean, there's really nothing else. I mean, everyone else that I had on here, I'm pretty sure on a buy besides Evan Ingram, Tyler Conklin, Dan Arnold. I mean, it's not a big tight end. So
Cole
Komet. Yeah, I mean, again, want to throw up in my mouth a little bit with Cole Kmet still. Disappointment. Maybe Adam Trotman comes out of the bye and does something really good. I just don't know.
Man,
but
that hype was crazy.
It's not a good tight end week, and it hasn't really been most of the season. So besides Ricky Seals right now. So, but that's the end of our waiver wire segment of the show, guys. Hopefully, some of those pickups help you out for your going to week 7. So now we got a quick buy low, sell high segment here now. And Josh, I'll let you do your both buy low and sell high.
All right. Okay, so this it's going to be tough because the player that I have as a buy low is actually playing tonight in Monday Night Football. And so it might no longer be a window at all to buy low on this guy, but wide receiver Stephan Diggs of the Buffalo Bills. Right now in the season, Stephan's brother who plays cornerback has more TDs than Stephan. And that's a crazy stat, right? And Stephan, after dominating so hard last season and being so consistent, many have been disappointed by his kind of slow start, right? And a lot of people are so disappointed that they might be willing to move him for less value than he's actually worth. He's still getting plenty of volume, averaging 9 targets a game, but he's only managed to break 100 yards once actually this season. And so it's a kind of crazy to think about that. And so you got to capitalize on that if you can. It might slam shut, after tonight against Tennessee. But big games are coming. So if he somehow still comes out of the gate and he doesn't do as well, with monster numbers tonight, shoot out a trade, offer for him. And what I would consider is, maybe packaging a couple players, maybe like a running back, running back with a wide receiver 2 or something like that for him. That's usually what I like to do during trades, is try to package and upgrade my quality at a position and then go on the waiver wire or free agency and scoop someone up with high upside. So he's my buy low. And again, I don't know if that window will still be open after tonight. But my sell high is Cordarrelle Patterson. I still don't know if I'm saying that right, if it's Cordero or Cordarrelle. But he's someone that I saw in the Bears, and he had some flashes, on his runs and some playmaking ability. He's always been an awesome football player. He just hasn't really been a fantasy guy. But this season, my goodness, he is just he's been killing it. Obviously they had a bye, but he's scored 5 TDs in 5 games, and he's being targeted. He's catching passes, and I kind of feel like a hater having him as the sell high. But man, his value I don't think will ever be higher than it is right now. And so I've seen some crazy trades. Like I've seen people, sell Cordarrelle Patterson, move him straight up for guys like Cooper Kupp. Just amazing value, and that's what it's all about. So I think he can, and I think he will still produce, on the Falcons offense, and they're looking for ways to get him involved. But I just can't see him sustaining this incredible, pace or incredible output for the remainder of the season. So I want to invest in guys like Stephan Diggs. So, maybe even, don't sell him cheap, just because he's a sell, but sell high, right? You can probably still use him on your team and he'll produce. But if you can get someone like Diggs out of a deal, some elite guys who, maybe haven't been doing as well as we're used to them doing, go for it, and try to see if, you can make something happen with someone who's still really high on what Patterson's been able to do this season. So, Cordarrelle Patterson is my sell high.
All right, I like it. I like both those. I like both those options right there. I completely agree. I was gonna actually pick Patterson too, so I love the Patterson take for sure. Coming off a bye, I mean, it's a good time to see if someone's still remembering his first 5 weeks of the season. So I love that.
I mean, he's crazy, man.
It is insane. His efficiency is outstandingly wild. That's something to sell. So, Coach Gibbs, what do you got for us?
I'm going with one of my favorite players as a buy low, and Keenan Allen. Historically, we all know Keenan Allen being a volume receiver who typically gets more than like 130 targets a year. And as the season has progressed, he started out hot, 18 points and PPR, but his targets have steadily gone down as weeks gone by. You see Mike Williams is becoming more of a prominent piece in the offense. We'll say weeks 3 and 4, he had 12, 11. Weeks 5 and 6, he had 9 and 5 targets. Yardage has been dropping down as much as the targets have. He's currently wide receiver 29 on season fantasy points scored per week, and he's only a wide receiver 24 for season long ranking. So I think he's going to dramatically beat that. I expect him to be within that mid range wide receiver 2, whether that be around 14 to 16. So if you have opportunity to buy low on him, I think so. Obviously, guys, the time it doesn't get any much better. He's on a buy right now, so the fantasy owner needs another person to start.
Yeah.
So try to send an offer to get him on your team. And for sell high, I'm going the same with wide receivers. Courtland Sutton, this guy has been on a tear over the last 2 weeks, and just like Josh said, with Jerry Judy's somewhat returning. It may not be this week, but he's going to return soon. And if you could show or just look on his your app, he has some juicy matchups coming up against teams that are ranking low against wide receivers. So if you could point those 2 things in a direction and plead your case to your opposing fantasy managers to take him off your team, I think that will be good for you, because obviously you don't want to ride with the Broncos, even though they have been somewhat good this year. I just don't trust them as a very consistent, good offense in fantasy.
Can I don't want to stir any controversy or trouble, but I would say Sutton is someone I would hold. Actually, I do believe in his ability, and I actually have him above Jerry Judy in my own kind of rankings. Even if both were healthy, I think that he would truly be the wide receiver 1 there. I know there was talk well, Teddy Bridgewater, he's like a accuracy guy, and maybe Judy with his route running might get more of a boost and things like that. But I'm really happy with what I've seen out of Sutton coming, out of his knee injury coming to the season, and he's playing so well, and I don't think that there's any reason to think that it'll stop. And like you're saying, the reasons you're saying to sell high on him with the matchups, those are reasons I would keep him, and see how he can do. Teddy B, he's still not the best quarterback. I really like him as a person and as a, just overall football player, but he doesn't bring that much excitement to me still. But Sutton for me is still a hold. So I wouldn't go unless you can sell really high on him.
I get you
I'll
running
report
back or something, but
yeah.
yeah, I get your point.
You're on the pot.
Definitely do.
You're on the pot. I'm just kidding.
We'll give you some
honestly,
Patterson.
I actually thought about that Dips as one of mine too. So I'm on your page there on that a little bit. So all right. So I guess we're on to me now. All right. So guys, one guy I'm trying to buy low on right now is Henry Ruggs. It seems weird to say Henry Ruggs because it's Henry Ruggs and it's the Raiders offense here, but Henry Ruggs has been pretty decent this season. I've liked what I've seen out of him this year, much more than last year. I feel like he's made major improvements as a route runner, as a catcher, just a complete 360 from what we saw his rookie season here now. And first game with this new coaching regime, and he's got 97 yards and a touchdown. And again, they're getting him downfield balls more, and he's got matchups coming up that I like. I like Philly. I like the Giants. I like Kansas City, Cincinnati, Dallas, Washington, Kansas City again. I like these matchups moving forward here, and he really hasn't done much this season. I feel like there's still big games coming for him, and I feel like you could get Henry Ruggs for basically nothing right now on the dollar. And so try to get him on your team and see if he can actually jump into that wide receiver 3 role, low-end wide receiver 2 maybe, if he can get some really big games going. It's not just going through Darren Waller right now. Henry Ruggs is being involved in this offense here. So I would take a shot and see if I can make a trade for him as like a potential buy low candidate right now. All right, here.
There, Slay locks him down, talking all that smack, boy.
He's not doing that. Let's be real. Come on. All right, so my sell high right now is Mark Andrews, and again, it's hard to want to sell a tight end because they're so rare to come by. And you're selling him, you have to get somebody else out of it that's worth buying, and something else probably to actually sell him. But the reason is because I feel like eventually the run game will get figured out there in Baltimore. Mark Andrews the last couple of weeks has been dominant. The last 2 weeks he has just been a nonstop. Well, he's played some of the worst teams against tight ends, the Colts and the Chargers. Fantastic matchups. And then he's got matchups that are not so great mostly the rest of the season. So, the two matchups that I would like after this is Miami and Green Bay over the next 7 or 8 weeks here. Rashod Bateman is now getting into this team here now. There was a reason why they picked him first overall. He might see a bigger workload. Sammy Watkins will come back at some point. He will probably want to demand some touches. So you might not be seeing these 9 and 10 target games that we've seen from Mark Andrews these last 2 weeks. It might be a good time to sell off on him now. Try to get someone in a lower tier that can maybe you can get like a guy like Mike, I can't think of his name, Mike Gesicki right now, or Noah Fant right now, and then pair him up with somebody else like a low volume, a wide receiver that can probably help you out in your fantasy team right now, or someone who is high upside, not low volume, high upside wide receiver right now.
Yeah, don't target low volume guys.
Don't get low volume guys. I'm sorry.
And you
high opportunity in a wide receiver, or even running back right now. Maybe a running back that's hurt right now that you could go and snag that people just want to get rid of because they need players to help in their starting lineups right now. So that's my number 2 guy. So my sell high guy. So, but yeah, guys, that's gonna wrap things up tonight, guys. Josh, man, we do appreciate you so much for jumping on. This was a ton of fun. Always got some good fantasy knowledge. So before we hop off, anything you want to say and mention before we let you go?
Man, just awesome to be part of this podcast, and appreciate you inviting me on and letting me just talk football with you guys. Again, you can just find me at JB Cho Knows on Twitter, and just feel free to DM or ask questions. I put up tweets asking, for people to give start and sit questions and all kinds of things. So never hesitate. I'm here to help in the fantasy football community, and it's fun talking football. So yeah, just thank you so much for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Josh. Absolutely. So as always, guys, thank you all for listening in tonight. Please go check out our website at www.thefantasycoaches.com. You got our rankings, you got articles popping up there. We're gonna have a buy low, sell high coming out later tonight. We'll have our, we have our podcast up there. We had a couple cool things going over there, so please go check that out. And if you could please give us a follow on Twitter at Coaches Fantasy, we really appreciate it. And like I said, we are back to our 4 podcasts this week. We'll have our normal 2 on Monday and Thursday, and we'll have 2 on Tuesday and Wednesday this week too. So wait out for those. And as always, you can hit up me and Coach Tibbs on Twitter if you want as well. You can do that with me at Coach Stephen P.
I'll take Concho.
So we thank you guys for listening. Tune in until next time. Enjoy the rest of your week 6, and take care, everyone.